Mark Rogers TV talking some USC football. We bring in Keely Eure from USCfootball.com to talk up the Trojans for 2017. And more importantly, we look ahead to next fall. Keely, how you doing this afternoon?
Good. Thanks for having me on. It's fun to be here.
Definitely. So the Trojans, of course, the Pac-12 champs, didn't finish so well in the Cotton Bowl. That was kind of a strange game.
Yeah.
So let's start right there, because we all anticipated this being billed as, okay, this is the best game we're going to get outside the playoffs. These are the two best teams. These are the two conference champs that were left out. These are two blue bloods. There's going to be talent all over the field. And, man, I expected a shootout. I wasn't surprised Ohio State won, but I expected, man, there's going to be big plays in this game, not to shun the defenses because there was talent on both sides there as well. But Ohio State took advantage of turnovers, got a lead, just kind of sat on it, and not a whole lot happened in the second half.
Yeah, it was pretty boring. Yeah, I think most people expected USC's offense to actually show up in the game. But yeah, it was strange leading up to the game. We noted that USC only had one full padded practice, and Helton hasn't been very good at figuring out, when he has a longer time to prepare for games, how to figure out the practice schedule and how to kind of make the players ready, but also don't overwhelm them or have more injuries. And that's something that for the Wisconsin Holiday Bowl was something that backfired on Helton. And going into the game, I didn't know if Helton had sorted that out yet, so it was a little curious that they were doing that, because I thought they would maybe come out flat. And that's kind of what we saw, at least from the offensive side of things. It was just a weird game all around. I mean, talking to the players after the game, they said up front the O-line was having miscommunications. Aka Cedric Ware, the running back, said we couldn't really get the running game going, and none of us were really on the same page, which forces the question, why at this point in the season were they not on the same page? Why can't they get the running game going at this point in the season when you have that much time to prepare? So some questions coming out of that game, but I think it was a good wake-up call for the team. I think that the problems you saw in the Cotton Bowl were problems that nagged the team all season long. Turnovers. I mean, now Sam Darnold's not there anymore, but that's something that was nagging him that whole season. Miscommunications on the offense. That's something that was nagging the team all season long. And I think if you didn't have this shocking bad performance by the offense in the Cotton Bowl, you could kind of get away with being Pac-12 champions and sweep things under the rug. But I think this is kind of a wake-up call to the coaching staff that, hey, maybe we need to get some more experienced guys on the offensive side of things as far as coaching goes, because T. Martin, this is his second season as the offensive coordinator, and there's been some people who aren't happy with the way he's calling things. So maybe this was a good wake-up call for the team.
Talking USC football with Keely Eure. You can join her and the rest of the staff at USCfootball.com. The Trojans, of course, coming off a Pac-12 championship and Cotton Bowl loss to Ohio State. You bring up Clay Helton trying to deal with these postseason games and having the layoff and how to use that time. Of course, he lost to Wisconsin, as you mentioned, in the Holiday Bowl, and really had that kind of rough stretch of games in which they finished up that season having to take on Stanford, getting mauled in that game. They lose the Holiday Bowl game. They turn around. They got to face Alabama. They get another rough one against Stanford. And he really had to weather that transition there of the end of a bad season, not a bad season, but the back end of that was difficult. And then he gets off to a rough start. What are people thinking now that they made the run that they did in winning the Rose Bowl, and then they have another Pac-12 championship season this year? What is Trojan Nation thinking about Clay Helton?
It was really weird, because if you just look at the record and Pac-12 champions, you'd think, oh, fans are so happy with this season. They did well, they did better, they won the Pac-12 championship. Well, they haven't done that since 2008. Fans should be happy, and it was crazy the negativity surrounding the team this season. Just from the fan point of view, which was kind of interesting. I think if you looked at the scores of games in this season, it looked good, but there was definitely, if you watch the games, they left points on the board. I think not having Juju Smith-Schuster and Adoree Jackson kind of made the team a little bit more boring. Sam Darnold's kind of a more vanilla guy. Same with Rojo. He scores a touchdown and then he kind of like taps players on the head and then goes back to the sideline. You didn't have that fire that you're seeing now in the NFL from those guys. So I think fans were like, the passion has kind of gone a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, the players are passionate, but they don't have that fire that Juju and Adoree had. So I think fans were kind of a little disappointed in that, but also disappointed where the missed opportunities where this team could have been dominant. I mean, even look at the Cotton Bowl. They could have been right there with Ohio State, and they just weren't. So I think fans were disappointed. I think in the fans' point of view, they could have done more, which I don't know. I think the Rose Bowl really hyped the team up a little bit too much. I think Sam Darnold was still kind of raw. So I think you're seeing this balancing out of media and how much they hyped up USC and the expectations balancing out with what actually happened. But as far as Clay Helton, I think fans are really seeing what he does in the offseason, seeing what will happen in year 3, because now he doesn't have Sam Darnold. That really puts the coaching on him. What will the team look like without such a talented quarterback? And seeing what he does with coaching changes, if he makes any changes. Because I think a lot of people think that there are changes that need to be made, and whether he makes them and makes those hard decisions will be a test to see if Clay Helton's really growing in the aspect of a head coach.
And Keely, you got to think, in addition to having to deal with a bowl schedule that he's still trying to navigate as a new head coach, then he gets thrown the early signing period, which threw all the coaches for a loop, but especially him. I'm thinking, man, you got to prepare for one of the best teams in the country. So some people think it's an exhibition game. So other people think, man, no, you got to beat Ohio State. You got to win this game. You got to consider this a championship type game. So I don't know where he was on that dynamic, but at the same time, you're bringing in recruits, and I don't think any of us knew what to expect of the early signing day and how much was going to get accomplished. But as it turned out, for the big programs, that was pretty much signing day.
Yeah.
And they did really well. They brought in 10 players. They're the number 1 rated class in the Pac-12, according to 247, number 10 in the country. So it worked well, but that had to really throw them for a loop as well.
Oh, for sure. I think definitely hearing from some coaches, they were not expecting early signing day to be as big as it was. If you look at like Georgia getting 6 5-star guys, like they were not expecting it to be, okay, this is a huge day. I think they were trying to feel it out more and weren't prepared for how big it was, but they did a great job. But not only were they preparing for the Cotton Bowl, they were preparing for the Pac-12 championship. So in a way, the early signing day kind of hurts the successful teams, because if you look at a team like other teams in Pac-12, they weren't preparing for a championship. They weren't preparing for a big bowl game. Or if you're not even in the big bowl game, you don't have to put so much time and effort into it because no one's going to care about the random bowl that you're in as opposed to your recruiting class, you know? So I think it definitely hindered the coaching staff. I mean, we'd be at practice with Helton preparing for the Cotton Bowl, and he was like, I just got back from a flight. And then I'm leaving after practice again for a flight. So he definitely said that the coaches were not getting any sleep during this period. And of course, you have Christmas and all that stuff. So it was definitely a stressful time for them, but they did get a good class so far. And then you get JT Daniels reclassifying. So it definitely, the early signing period was a weird thing. I heard from a lot of coaches that they were not big fans of it. I mean, they like it, but it was hard because they don't even know some guys who are going to the NFL. You know, the problem with the early signing day is that you don't know how many scholarships you actually have available because you haven't even finished your bowl game yet. You know, that was something that the coaches said that was really hard to deal with, is you don't even know how many scholarships you have available going into the next season that you're recruiting for. So it was challenging all around.
And it's a good point, Keely, you bring up about making the conference championship game. Urban Meyer said the same thing. He said, you know, when you've got until the first week of February, then you're recruiting all the time, but you're generally focusing on that once you get through your bowl game. Versus now, we've got to focus on it before the bowl game, and you lose an entire week, which is like massive because you've only got 3 weeks to begin with. Before the early signing date, and you're kind of focused on winning a conference championship. And I know that he mentioned, and I'm sure it's the same for the USC staff, is that they won the conference championship game and guys were like headed out the door or the locker room like 10, 15 minutes later. Yeah, yay, we won. And then out the door to recruit and hit the road, go on a plane flight or grab the car and go.
Yeah, we were walking out of the stadium and we saw a coach and we were like, hey, you're going to celebrate? Like, congratulations. He's like, I'm getting on a plane right now to go recruit. Like, there's no time to celebrate. So you're right. It was just, they had no time to really process all the things that were happening. It was just like at the weight over their shoulder of recruiting. They can't even really celebrate a conference championship. So it's crazy.
Keely, I got to say that I just looked at the class here really for the first time. So we've got 15 commits. So 10 are signed, 5 are still waiting. They're still considered hard commits that will come in. And out of that, 10's not nearly as many as I see with the other teams when I talk to other bloggers and broadcasters like yourself and cover the big teams, that most of them are in the 17 to 20 range that they've already signed. But it's an extremely talented class, counting 5 guys rated in the top 10 at their position. So the quality's there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think USC fans had a hard time on the first day judging what do we do with this, because you didn't have JT Daniels reclassifying at that point. And you only had 8 guys. So a lot of fans were like, well, we don't know how to really judge this. But I think having JT Daniels reclassify and be in this class really changes USC fans' perspective, because now you have this quarterback that is so highly touted that fans are like, okay, we can, there's not that many guys so far, but we can put up with having Amon-Ra St. Brown and having JT Daniels. I mean, I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out because those two were electric at Mater Dei. But I'm curious about this quarterback battle because JT Daniels can't be an early enrollee. So Jack Sears and Matt Fink kind of have a head start on JT in that sense. But from what I've heard, I mean, I talked to JT a couple times, but from what I heard from other analysts is that he's just a cerebral player, and he has a real chance, even though he's coming late and coming in the fall. So this will be a very interesting battle for sure.
So how do you view the quarterback battle and the other people around you that really know football and know the track record of these high school players? You mentioned Sears and Fink. Those are names that I remember seeing in the recruiting wars. So especially Sears, very highly thought of. So what's expected to play out in the spring?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard that Sears was maybe more talented than Darnold coming out of high school. We've seen Sears in the scout team, but the scout team is really where Sam Darnold flourished. That's where some players are like, we knew he was going to be the guy in the scout team, but we haven't heard that really for Sears yet. But these guys really haven't had a lot of time. I mean, when you have a guy like Sam Darnold, you get a couple reps here and there. Matt Fink was the second team quarterback behind Sam Darnold, but we haven't really seen a lot of them. So I'm really curious to see, as far as the leadership goes, who really takes the reins, because Matt Fink has been there longer, but Sears kind of seems like more of the guy right now. So I'm curious to see how that will battle out. But once fall starts, I'm really curious to see what JT Daniels does, because I feel like Sears will maybe have the edge coming into fall camp. But we'll see how that happens, because I mean, when Max Brown was supposedly the guy, the story was that Sam Darnold kind of came in and became the leader underneath Max Brown. So I have a feeling that might happen with JT Daniels and Jack Sears. So I really don't know, but a lot of people are saying that even though he's young, JT Daniels could really come in and steal the show. So
that could be crazy.
Yeah.
But it happens more than it ever happened before in college football, where these guys are so well prepared at the elite high schools and all the camps they go to that they're more prepared than they ever have been to take that job at an elite school, even that first year. So, Keely, you mentioned, as we spin forward to 2018, that Ronald Jones not the most exciting guy in terms of the glitz in the end zone and the celebration or anything, but when it came to on the field excitement,
he was exciting.
Yeah, he was maybe my favorite running back to watch over the last couple of years in college football. I never thought that he got the due that he deserved. And I know that there were some things with pass blocking, pass protection that factored into it, because I never thought they got him out in space in the passing game. He'd catch like 8 balls a year. I never understood why they didn't make him more of a passing threat as well. But he's obviously going to be missed. Darnold, of course. Can you kind of set us up for 2018 and who's going to be missing, and maybe some of those guys that we know a little less about that need to step up?
Yeah, well, to note the whole Ronald Jones passing threat, Ronald Jones was notoriously bad at catching footballs. Like, it was a joke around the team. Like, credit to Dylan McCullough. He really, when he came in as the running backs coach, he came in and just nailed them with passes and just made them catch balls. And so the fact that Ronald Jones was actually catching passes this season was huge. I mean, like, people around the team, when he would catch them, they would be like, was that Rojo? So that's maybe why not he wasn't the biggest passing threat. But as far as next season, really look for Stephen Carr to take up that starting job as running back. You have Cedric Ware, who's been there for a while. He was kind of the Texas duo with Ronald Jones, but obviously he was kind of in Ronald Jones' shadow. But Cedric Ware is kind of that guy who can do it all. Really, he has great hands. He can catch the ball. A good runner. Good at pass protection. I think the most developed at pass protection is Cedric Ware. But Stephen Carr is just electric. He as a true freshman came in, and if you remember the Stanford game with Ronald Jones, that 1-2, he just looked so great. I think he kind of hit a rookie wall a little bit freshman year. He also had that ankle injury that really sidelined him. I don't think he was 100% even in the Cotton Bowl. So I think really look at Stephen Carr to be that next guy. But you also have Vivai Malapai, who is a good kind of like a hybrid. He's kind of like a fullback that's not. And then I'm forgetting who the other guy is. Who is the other guy? Vivai, Cedric Ware, and there's another guy, which I'm sorry, the running back I'm missing. But yeah, and then what's going to be interesting is seeing who stays as far as wide receiver. If Deontay Burnett elects to say, he will kind of become that veteran guy on the offense, because right now the offense is really young. If Toa Lobendon, he's a left tackle, there's some talk that he might move to center. He would probably be the most veteran guy on the offense, which that leadership on the offense is kind of missing this season, which will be interesting to see what happens now if Deontay, not very vocal guy, Toa, not very vocal guy, seeing if anyone else pops up, maybe a Michael Pittman. I think USC really missed him in the beginning of the season with that ankle injury, as well as Tyler Vaughn. He's a guy who has that fire, that passion. If you see him make catches, he's getting all angry. USC kind of needs that passion in the offense, which they kind of, like I said earlier, didn't really have this season. So I'm very curious to see who will step up, not only in the Ronald Jones area or Sam Darnold at quarterback, but as far as leadership, I think that's the biggest thing that's missing right now. And with a young offense, you need guys to kind of rein it in.
We've got Keely Eure on the line from USCFootball.com. And Keely, before we let you go, I'm looking at the 2018 schedule. And one area in which maybe Trojan fans need to give their team a break is that we applaud all these teams across the country for scheduling. Okay, Alabama, you scheduled Florida State. Applause. Ohio State, you scheduled Oklahoma. USC always has Notre Dame, and they always schedule somebody else. They always have one of the very best or toughest non-conference schedules in college football. Played the tough game against Texas at home, who proved to be a little bit better than we thought. Got to travel on the road now to Austin this year. Have Notre Dame, of course. So it's always a difficult schedule, and I applaud this program for always taking the high road with the non-conference scheduling.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to mention they always play Stanford one of the first 4 games of the season because of that Notre Dame thing. So it's always really tough for them because for some reason Stanford always is a little bit tougher in the beginning of the season than they are as it goes out. I mean, Stanford does get better as the seasons go on, but the Stanford-USC matchup is always tough. But yeah, I mean, if you look at this season, USC schedule hurt them terribly. No bye week. No Notre Dame on the road, and that's always a tough one to win. But yeah, it will be interesting to see going to Texas this season how USC will fare, because I think it takes a lot of mental strength to go into a hostile environment and win. As you saw with Notre Dame, that kind of fell apart. And I'm curious to see if Helton can kind of get that on track and see if he can get a team go into a hostile environment and win. Same with Wazoo. Wazoo was a very hostile environment and they couldn't get it done. So I'm curious to see if Helton kind of matures in that area and coaching and kind of getting his team prepared mentally to play in such hostile environments.
All right. Talking USC football with Keely Eure of USCFootball.com. So you join her and the rest of the staff right there. We've had on Ryan Abraham a number of times to talk USC football throughout the season. So Keely, we appreciate the time and you breaking things down for us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. That should do it.